HP.gov.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the program's participants and do not necessarily reflect those of station staff, management, and advertisers.
One second, everyone. Welcome to Pushing the Limits, hosted by Paul Lance. I am identifying as Brian Shapiro today. Does my guest want to introduce himself?
Leonard Cardinelli, 25
Leonard Cardinelli.
year, retired police lieutenant and former union president.
Thank you, sir. It's nice to meet you.
Nice
so
to meet you.
Brian is having pina coladas and getting a sunburn, I hope.
We assume.
I hope so. I think so, yes. And I am not going to rub the lotion on it wherever it is sunburnt. I'm not going to do that. That is a bridge too far. I'm not willing to go there. So real quick, I've never hosted this myself, so I want to tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Paul Lance. I'm from California. The reason I started doing social media, making content creation, is because of Christian nationalism, and then I got into politics, and which led me to calling into Brian, and then we've kind of become friends and talked. So you get me today. Here I am. So let's get into it. Hold on here. Let me check my notes. The first thing I want to talk about, a little off topic, before we get into LA and Harvey Weinstein, because that verdict just came out, Leonard, right? He just told me about it.
15, 20 minutes ago, I heard about it.
I saw an article on CNN from the Baptist Church, and this is what they said. The proposed resolution says legislators have a duty to pass laws that reflect the truth of creation and natural law about marriage, sex, human life, and family, and to oppose laws contradicting what God has made through nature and scripture. So this is what I don't understand. Maybe somebody can enlighten me. Maybe Leonard, you can enlighten me after we're done here. How is it that the Baptist Church votes for a man who rapes women, who's a racist, who has dinner with white nationalists, who causes an insurrection to the death of an officer? Multiple officers have PTSD, crushed vertebrae. Officer Sitnick will never see his family, steals from cancer charities, cheats on his wives, but the Evangelical Baptist Praise Jesus Church wants to demonize gay people. Why is that, Leonard?
Well, I think it's probably mostly about money. And if you look at who they support and how much money they generate and how they use it, are they a nonprofit? You know, I don't know. There's a middle of the road there. But my question is, when it comes to these evangelicals and the Baptists and the fire and brimstone, is I wonder if they read that portion of the Bible that talks about, you know, feeding the hungry and taking care of the poor and the elderly and not taking away their medical care. What happened to all the compassion that's in the Bible?
That's socialism. We can't have that, right? We can't take care of the poor people. They got to pick themselves up by the bootstraps. They have to work 3 jobs, 60 hours a week, and never see their families because capitalism, Herb. Yeah, I find it funny, you know, that these evangelicals want to judge sin. You know what's interesting? One quick scripture reference here. In Deuteronomy 22:22, it says, if a man shall lie with another man's wife, that is detestable in the eyes of the Lord, and that is to be put to death. That's what the scripture says, evangelical. So people like MAGA, Herb, I'm curious when you call in later today, why is it that you don't follow that? Why is it that you eat shellfish, or you eat pork, or you shave your beards, or you get tattoos? Why is it that you take away people's free will? I'm just kind of curious here why that is. So any insight into that as to why we get the cherry pick scripture when it benefits us?
Well, how about bearing false witness? Constantly, every day, lies, inaccurate facts, twisting facts, which is even more interesting than just plain straight up lying.
Yeah.
But I think the problem is that they want to be judgmental on people, which, as we talked earlier, they must have not read James in the Bible, because James says you should not be judgmental because you'll be judged much harsher.
Yeah. Do you think, and one thing that I speak a lot about is social issues in this country, and it feels like when I hear evangelicals say that this is a Christian nation, and I ask them, right, and I say, okay, great, let's look at the history of America. Let's do a quick trip down memory lane. We stole black people from Africa, right? We stole the land from the Native Americans. We didn't give women rights. We put Asian into the internment camp. When exactly was this a Christian nation, evangelical? I'm just kind of curious when these Christian values were going to start being used in the United States of America, because Leonard, unless I'm missing part of history, I haven't seen love is patient, love is kind, love does not envy, love does not boast. I hear own the libs, tell women what to do with their bodies, demonize gay people, and cherry pick sin. And before we get off this topic, it's funny how it says in the book of James that if you break one commandment, you're guilty of breaking all of them. Yet it seems like evangelicals for abortion, and if you're gay, somehow that's a bridge too far. But if you rape women and you're a convicted felon, you're sent from Jesus above, and he's here to shed the light of Jesus.
Well, if you're going to draw an interesting parallel, if you go back to the Bible, who were the people who really pushed killing Jesus? It was the Pharisees, was it not?
The Sanhedrin, yes.
Yeah, they went to the kings.
Mm-hmm.
They went to King Herod, and he put him in jail and took him out. They went to Pontius Pilate, and he didn't really see anything wrong. But who really, it was the religious figures, it was the most powerful religious figures that actually wanted him silenced.
Yep.
So, I don't know, is that kind of like the current situation?
I think that the MAGA base is still the peace-staying people that crucified Jesus. And I think if Jesus came to most of the MAGA's house, they would do one of two things, Leonard. They would either put him on the cross again and say it's in the name of God because he's a radical left socialist.
Yep.
Or they would call ICE and deport him because he was brown. I think one of those two options is pretty fair. Am I wrong?
I think that, yeah. So what you're saying is nothing's changed.
No.
In over 2,000 years. And it just, the names and how they label it have changed in a clever way. But
yeah,
we all know what it is.
We do. All right, let's get into their orange antichrist really quick, because that's what I like to call him. That's my nickname for him today. Can you play that first clip for me? We're gonna listen to the convicted felon talk about renaming the military bases after Confederate leaders that supported slavery. So in this clip, looks like the orange guy issued an executive order that we're going to be renaming, what is it, 7 of these? Robert E. Lee and a bunch of other of these bases.
I think it's 6 or 7.
6 or 7. You got it? All right, here we go.
For a little breaking news, we are also going to be restoring the names to Fort Pickett, Fort Hood, Fort Gordon, Fort Rucker, Fort Polk, Fort A.P. Hill, and Fort Robert E. Lee. We won a lot of battles out of those forts. It's no time to change. And I'm superstitious. I like to keep it going, right? I'm very superstitious. We want to keep it going. So that's a big story. We just announced that today to you for the first time. They said, why didn't you wait till Saturday? I said, I can't wait. I got to talk to my friends here today. This is a record crowd. You never had a crowd this big. That's an honor. You think this crowd would have showed up for Biden? I don't think so. I don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong.
Wow. I mean, you would think after 8 years in high school, Trump would be twice as smart as you and I, but evidently this is what we get. You know what I find very interesting is when people call in here and people that I talk to when I'm on TikTok, they say he's not racist. So let's just go over a couple things, Leonard, really quick, if we could. He didn't rent to black people in New York. He has dinner with Nick Fuentes, a white supremacist who talks positively about Adolf Hitler. There's very fine people on both sides to white nationalists. He wants to take away DEI, CRT. If I'm not mistaken, CRT, I still haven't heard the name of one school grades K through 12 that even teaches CRT. Taking down the history of like Harriet Tubman, removing the history of the Tuskegee Airmen, which was the first black airman in the service. And he removed the history of Jackie Robinson. So I find it rich. And he questioned the birth of Barack Obama first. So I find it really surprising that so many people come up here and go, he's not racist. And yet he was partners with Elon Musk, who does a Nazi salute and he doesn't denounce it. And Donald Trump's father, unless I'm wrong here, was part of the KKK, wasn't he, at one point?
That is what has been reported. And also in the 80s, if you remember, he lost a lawsuit because he was not renting to a certain minority class.
Right.
And that goes all the way back to the 1980s.
And let's not forget about the Central Park Five, where he wanted them.
That was the 90s or so, yep. I think. Yeah.
And executed. And to this day, he's never retracted that statement. With no evidence, wasn't on the jury, didn't see it, but because of the color of their skin, he wants law and order, because that's what Christians do, Leonard, is they want to execute black people without any evidence.
He still thinks he won the 2020 election. He won't let that go.
He still thinks he's a Christian.
He still thinks that the people that he pardoned from January 6th are somehow better than a couple of people down in LA who, I'm not condoning throwing glass. I'm not
No.
condoning violence and lighting cars on fire, but that was they certainly weren't beating the police
Yeah.
with poles with American flags on them.
Yeah. Hey, Numchuck, can you play the next clip for us really quick? We're going to play a clip because I think this is very interesting. One of the things going into what Leonard said is we always talk about they're illegal, they're undocumented, blah, blah, blah. So let's listen to McCarthy really quick, the former Speaker of the House, tell us about the land that the Mexicans want back.
Your native California, it's getting real there.
It's getting very real. And
yeah.
people should
Give us
listen
your
to
take.
Well, you should listen to what the protesters are saying, and they're not protesters, they're rioters. And they're not sitting there having American flags saying they want to stay in America, they want to become an American. They say this is Mexico, they're going to take their land back, and they hold Mexican flags, and then they raise.
They want their land back, Leonard. What could he mean by that? Because I thought we didn't want illegal people on land. Is this not our land? Is that what Kevin McCarthy's saying there, Leonard?
Well, like we were talking earlier, you got to remember that Mexico actually stretched deep into America at one point, 5 or 6 additional states, maybe up to Colorado. And so we took all that land back. So what I think he's trying to do is incite people to be upset with a certain culture to fit their narrative. And that's what they do. And actually, they're pretty good at it, even though it's lies and it's misinformation. They do get a lot of people wound up.
You know, it's interesting because if you really, like we talked about, we went down memory lane for the history of this country. We took black people, we took the land from Native Americans, we took the land from the Mexicans, we took the land from the Hawaiians. We've literally just taken everything from anyone that's not in my demographic. I mean, that's really the foundation of this country. And I was having a conversation with an Uber driver yesterday that actually watches the show. And I said, oh, Numchuck, he says, wanted to say hi to you. And I said, it doesn't matter if we get the red team or blue team in the White House. Ideally, it would be good. But Leonard, one thing that I felt strongly about, and when I do a lot of like TikTok lives and stuff, is I think the one positive thing out of this election, as much as I wanted Vice President Harris to work, and obviously a lot of people couldn't vote for her because she was a black woman, that's just a bridge too far for them, is we've never really dealt with the original sin of this country, which was it was built to benefit white people, the white patriarchy. Am I off base here, or am I off on a tangent and I'm completely off field?
Well, this is one of the reasons that a lot of those names were removed. A lot of those generals and a lot of the people who ran those forts, those 7 names that we mentioned, including Robert E. Lee, is because they were slave owners. And at the time, there was a lot of slave owners. But in the present time, you have to adjust and say, hey, the way that America feels now is being a slave owner was a terrible thing. And they treated people terribly. And they decided that, and then we had Ted Cruz at one point say, hey, at least they got educated. At least we taught them, while they were not feeding them and whipping them, and they had to sleep in the barn, and they treated them, terribly, but they thought it was to give them a meal and give them teach them how to cultivate certain vegetables. They thought that was giving them a skill.
And then once we did that, then we redlined the houses, right? And then we moved up, then we changed the housing prices. So we're like, yeah, we want everyone to be equal. We want you to work hard. But then we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and we're going to change the housing. So one of the conversations I had yesterday with another Uber driver, which is interesting, is this morning actually on a TikTok. It was a black man, and he put his house on the market. And he's like, it came in at like $275. And he's like, I'm going to try something. So he took everything out of his house, and he put everything in his neighbor's house across the street. Guess how much it got praised for when it came back, and his stuff wasn't there? Take a guess.
20% more.
$125,000 higher.
Wow.
Just by taking his stuff out. This isn't the first time I've heard this. So when I hear people say we're not a racist country, we are. I mean, the reality is a lot of this country, and it's a lot of the MAGA, and you can say that you're not racist, but racism wasn't a deal breaker for you. They couldn't handle a black man sitting behind the desk instead of picking their cotton, so they went back to what they know, which is the plantation owner.
Can I say a couple things
Yes,
about
sir.
racism?
Please.
Number one, I gave a speech once at the Martin Luther King statue in North Las Vegas, and Martin Luther King.
Oh, wow.
And Carrie. I was asked to do it by a big union because I was talking about workers' rights and civil rights. And when I started it in the beginning of the speech, I said that I didn't think racism had gone away. They only got better at hiding it. But now they're not even hiding it. They're saying it, straight out. And I have a lot of minority friends, and I have a lot of minority coworkers and people in my family, and I can tell you that they're not asking for a handout. Most of them are not asking for anything for free. What they're saying is, We just want a level playing field. We want to be able to compete for the same jobs that you have, the same universities, the same possibilities in America that you have. They're not asking for anything, but they don't want a level playing field because then you got to do the hard work.
They don't. And if you go in, another conversation I had was, if you look at the slave, the routes in the South from like the slave routes, and you look over today, a lot of the demographic is the same. It's because there's been generational poverty. We've never addressed it. And I do think that what we're seeing now is the white majority is going away, and a lot of these MAGA are freaking out because again, I think 9/11 might have been a precursor when they did the whole Muslim thing, and look at them, they're coming to destroy your country. I mean, if we take that logic, then white people shouldn't go to like Europe or Canada because white people are terrorists from January 6th. I mean, if you're going to use that demographic, it's the same. It's just what drives me nuts is if you're white and you storm the Capitol and you beat police officers, you get a pardon and you're a hero. If you're a rapist and you're a felon, you get to be president. There was a case in Nevada where that lady stole the money from the officer. What was her name?
Michelle Fury.
She was found guilty in a court of law, pardoned. There was a cop that was selling badges and deputizing people. He made what, $75,000 off of it?
Yeah.
Pardoned. Charles Kushner, pardoned. But if you're an immigrant and you've been here for 30 years, you've never committed a crime, you're a good person, you go to church, you're an actual Christian. Oh, I'm sorry, we're going to zip tie you. We're going to drag you out of school with face masks like the Gestapo, and while your kids are crying because we want law and order. It's such crap.
Does Michelle Fury deserve to be pardoned? So what she did was they were collecting money for 2 police officers that were shot in cold blood while they were having lunch. And I kind of knew one of them, and I was a police officer at the time. And I believe they're going to build a memorial to them, and took that money and spent it, on her daughter's wedding and a down payment on a house, according to the news.
I don't know that.
I don't know if those are exactly accurate, but I believe that's what happened.
Wow.
And then she's pardoned.
It's unbelievable. But law and order, right, Leonard? Law and order. We want law and order for white people.
They stole that. They stole the American flag. They stole freedom. They stole First Amendment. And I don't know. I have Republican friends and MAGA friends, and I don't think they're interested in free speech at all. They like free speech when they're speaking, but when someone else is speaking, if you notice, they always interrupt.
Yeah.
They always yell. Even with Brian the other day, he couldn't get a message out because it kept interrupting him.
I think a lot of that is, I talked to Brian about this yesterday, it's this toxic masculinity. There's something with these men that they've emotionally peaked in 7th grade, right? They think they're a hammer. They think they're an alpha male. And when you see them, they yell and they scream. And when I go to rallies, you know what they're wearing? Army boots and fatigue. They think that like it's Gravy Team 6. Like most of these guys can't even do 20 push-ups, and they act like the Rambo. And they do these videos where they're like, doing these back-to-back drills where they're shooting. I'm like, who the hell even does that? These guys are like, they can't even see their shoes, and they're acting like internet tough guys. And I think we'll get into this in a second, but the concern that I've heard from some people is some of these, is it the Marines that are down there that he put down there is?
Well, he sent 700 Marines. There's 4,000 National Guard, quote, Army. There's kind of a mix. And so the reason why the military personnel were sitting on the steps near the building is because by law, you can protect a federal building. But if you notice, they didn't step too far away from the building.
No.
And last night when the curfew came, it was LAPD. I didn't see any Army at all. It was all LAPD. It was their state police had around 600, but there are 700 Marines standing by in one of those buildings or 2 buildings, and no one knows why you would send active duty Marines to. I think he's just trying to send a message. He's trying to bully. He's trying to intimidate, and he's trying to silence. And the fact that Gavin Newsom came out yesterday and said, "Hey, don't be intimidated by these thugs. Keep speaking up. Keep calling your congressman. Keep hope alive." And he called him out and then Trump threatened to arrest Gavin Newsom. And he said, "Come on, tough guy, come and arrest me." That's the only kind of person that I see that's going to be able to stand up to him.
It is. And I grew up, a quick personal story on a side note. I grew up with the bully narcissist. He would, when we would eat with their mouth open, he would stab us with forks and hit us with belts and throw my mom through a wall. And then on Sunday, he would praise Jesus because, normal. But the thing with Donald Trump and his base is he's a fragile little man. He has thin skin. He doesn't have basic human emotions like compassion. Think about this, Leonard. This guy, like you have kids, right?
I have 3 grown boys. Yeah.
Can you imagine? And I have 2 boys myself. Like your wife comes home, just went through, whether it's a C-section or natural birth, and you're sitting there holding your kids, feeding them, taking pictures, spending time with them, rocking them to sleep. And this guy, while his wife is at home after giving birth to her 2-week-old son, he's banging a porn star out here in Las Vegas. Do you know, like, just morally bankrupt you have to be? Like, how out of touch with feelings and just lack of human decency to do that?
Well, his reputation in Atlantic City when he built the Taj Mahal and all those casinos down there, supposedly the news has reported that some businesses couldn't afford, after doing the work for him, they spent all their money on materials and labor and paid people, and then he just refused to pay them. And you can look up videos on YouTube of people saying they went out of business because, but who does that? What kind of person has multiple people working for them and then doesn't pay them? And then at the end of all of it, he claimed bankruptcy and he got out of about $960 million in debt.
I'm afraid
this
that
is supposed to be a great businessman. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, I'm afraid that America is about to be his 7th bankruptcy. Now, does that affect his credit score if he bankrupts the United States?
Well, the Moody's,
how does that work?
Moody's already lowered our score.
It's a A-, right?
A few weeks ago, for the first time in 20 or 30 years, they actually lowered our credit score.
And what his base doesn't understand, because their only focus is owning the libs, right? Like MAGA Herb. Call in today, Herb. I want to talk to you, buddy. Is when you do that and then it goes down to a B+ or something, what happens is that other countries that own our debt, like Canada, Japan, and China, they own what, $1.5 to $2 trillion in debt, something like that in stocks. And they say, you know what, the US dollar isn't worth that much anymore. I'm going to sell it. They don't even know what happens to the US dollar. Right down the toilet. And they're going to say, but we own the libs. He's playing 8D chess. The guy's not even playing checkers. He's playing Parcheesi with a blindfold. He doesn't even see the board.
If China would have dumped the bonds like they threatened,
at
the height of the tariffs, they threatened to dump the U.S. bonds, we would have went broke.
Right. And
they never did it, and I don't think they will do it, but that's how dependent we are on China.
They might. And then they'll blame Joe Biden somehow. It'll be Joe Biden's fault.
He played him again today. I can't remember what he said.
Oh, my God.
He's obsessed with that guy.
Oh, he is obsessed. All right. Let's switch over to so one of the things I was going through and doing some research, and I found this quote from Kamala Harris last year, and she, like Hillary Clinton, we should listen to the women because she called it out. So go ahead. Let's play that clip from, this is from last year, I think September, October, when Harris was running, about what to expect if this guy became president.
Yesterday, we learned that Donald Trump's former chief of staff, John Kelly, a retired 4-star general, confirmed that while Donald Trump was president, he said he wanted generals like Adolf Hitler had. Donald Trump said that because he does not want a military that is loyal to the United States Constitution. He wants a military that is loyal to him. He wants a military who will be loyal to him personally, one that will obey his orders even when he tells them to break the law or abandon their oath to the Constitution of the United States. In just the past week, Donald Trump has repeatedly called his fellow Americans the enemy from within, and even said that he would use the United States military to go after American citizens. And let's be clear about who he considers to be the enemy from within. Anyone who refuses to bend a knee or dares to criticize him would qualify, in his mind, as the enemy within, like judges, like journalists, like nonpartisan election officials. It is deeply troubling and incredibly dangerous that Donald Trump would invoke Adolf Hitler, the man who is responsible for the deaths of 6 million Jews and hundreds of thousands of Americans. All of this is further evidence for the American people of who Donald Trump really is. This is a window into who Donald Trump really is.
She was right. I mean, Hillary said the same thing.
She was right on point with that. Everything she said is 100% accurate. And if you look at the history, so Hitler is kind of known throughout history as starting in about 1933. That's when he started to come into power. But if you look at the history, in the 1920s, he was already working on it.
Yeah.
And then he already had people on board before the 1940s that were trying to make it so that you could override Parliament and that he had all the power, and he was getting rid of people that didn't agree with him and shipping them off to other countries, or in some cases, if he didn't agree with them, the people would disappear, let's put it that way.
I don't understand why people are so nervous about comparing them. Now, obviously, the 7 million Jews is horrible, and he hasn't done that. he's very similar to Hitler and what Benito Mussolini did in fascist Italy in the 30s and 40s.
There's a lot of similarities, but
Yeah.
like you said, people are a little uncomfortable about the word Nazi, and but if you remember back in the day, they had the Gestapo, and they would come up and say, "Where are your papers?" I mean, isn't that kind of what's happening today? Where are you from? Are you here legally? Do you have your papers? And if not, back in the 1930s and 40s, they'd have a big black station wagon looking vehicle, and they'd push your head down and put you in, and no one would ever see you again.
I heard today that is it the FIFA World Cup coming next year?
Yeah, that's going to be tough. That's a tough situation.
They are already saying that you better bring your papers to
And
FIFA.
well, other countries are saying they don't want to have it here because
I don't blame them.
because he's banned some of those countries, and he's talked terribly about some of those countries, and some of the countries, he doesn't really like, because I don't know if it's because of the particular race or the religion that they have, or just the politics, but it's going to be it's a real interesting kind of dynamic of how are we going to do this World Cup when I think 60 or 70% of the countries are not allowed to have people here. And if they're here, they have to have visas. They have to have the proper, like you said, the proper paperwork. And I think people are regretting voting to agree to have the World Cup in America. I think they're regretting it.
They're going to take it out. And I think what a lot of Trumpers don't know, or they don't care because they can't see outside of their own, when their heads are up their backside, is this American exceptionalism. We're the best. We're the greatest. Well, A, we haven't been the greatest for everybody that doesn't look like me. Let's be real. And secondly, if we isolate ourselves, even like in the Midwest right now, in 6 months, Nebraska could go bankrupt because places like California, blue states put more into the government than they get out of it. Red states are literally on social programs because they don't make enough money.
75%
Yeah,
are Trump voters.
they're socialists and they're against
So
socialism.
you think they're regretting it? What about the Latinos for Trump? I know that's a hot subject, and people don't like to talk about that either.
Yeah.
But what about the Latinos for Trump who proudly voted for him?
I think in that demographic, and I'm only going off of what I've heard, is it's two things. For the guys, it's a lot of machismo. It's
Exactly.
misogyny.
Exactly.
But there is also, and I think with the when I do TikTok lives, they use this black people that vote for Trump. They call them blagga. It's a weird term. I don't use.
I've never heard of that.
It's going on. It's a thing. Anyway, but there's something where it's. And my Uber driver said this yesterday, and he was black, and I'm like, and I was asking him what he thought, and he's like, what it is that they think that they want to be white, like they're going to get a membership card, like they're going to be part of the club or something. I can't speak to that because I'm not black, but I don't disagree with that. I think that they something like, oh, well, if I do this, then I'm going to be accepted. And I don't understand, like, if you look at the history of the United States, that's never been a thing.
What happened to the Tim Donaldsons of the world? What happened when it was time to pick secretaries and a cabinet?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, not too many minorities, if any.
His first administration, the only black person was urban housing. The second, urban housing. I'm sure that's not a racist dog whistle at all, right? I'm sure that's just a coincidence.
I believe the immigration laws haven't been changed since, I think it's even before Clinton. I can't remember who was the last one to change the immigration laws. But my question is, if Trump was there in 2016, he had every opportunity to make better laws. As a matter of fact, when Biden came up with a more restrictive law, when Biden was president, who burned that bill down? Who told Congress not to vote for that bill? It was a bill about making more strict laws on immigration, and Trump told everybody behind the scenes, don't vote for it.
Right, because he wanted to use it as a bargaining chip.
And he didn't want Joe Biden to look good politically, but he wasn't worried about the border. He wasn't worried about immigration. He was just worried about politics.
Now, let me ask you a question, because I'm like Brian. I'm very progressive on issues, but I happen to be registered. In all fairness, I would say, just a question back to you. Do you think that Joe Biden should have done that bill earlier in his presidency instead of waiting until the 11th hour to do it?
Absolutely. It was a mistake. It was a mistake.
Yeah.
The way that Kamala Harris approached it, because they kind of said, we're doing this and we're making it, we're limiting to 5,400 people a day, and we're closing down this. And they had a good story, but Americans are not stupid. They knew they weren't doing anything because they hadn't changed. They didn't change the laws. Do you think if Kamala Harris at least attempted, and part of her policy was, I'm changing the law to A, B, and C, and I'm shutting it down because I've talked to a lot of people in my family and friends, and they don't really have a problem with anyone coming here as long as they follow the law. As they jump through the hoops and they become a U.S. citizens, everybody's kind of okay with that. But the greater majority of the people, even though they're good people, good families, they have kids here, they've spent decades, technically they're still illegal. Now, I don't mind, but because they're good people. I go by how the people are, if they're a good person, not or a bad person. But a lot of people feel that, you know, if they didn't follow the proper procedure, maybe they shouldn't be here.
But how are they justifying voting for a convicted felon and a rapist? How is that okay? But if you're an undocumented immigrant, you get shackled up and zip tied. How do they justify that?
Well, if we're talking about the shady MAGAs, that's a whole different thing.
Oh, okay. We're talking about the base that's
Because
kind of
they
in the middle.
they just hate equally across the board.
Right.
And they're willing to take it in the shorts and pay extra money and lose some rights, just as long as, in my opinion, them other people don't get the jobs and them
Right.
other people don't get the rights, and they can't say what they want. And that's the way I see it. They're willing to take a loss.
Well, right, because they said they voted for the orange guy because, you know, I have no problem with the black woman, but I really want the price of eggs to go down. Now eggs are going up. Now gas is going up. Now the stock market's going down. Now inflation's going up. Now tariffs are going up, costing goods to be up more. Now it's like, well, I'm willing to suffer for the greater good of this country. Well, they went from eggs are too expensive to praise Jesus, eggs are too expensive because my orange Messiah is going to bring down the prices. I was at a car parts store a couple weeks ago buying my kitty. He backed up into a pole. And I'm talking to the guy there. I'm like, man, how are the prices going up? He's like, yeah, this is probably going to go up under 2,000%. He's like, but in about 5 years when manufacturing's done, this is going to be half the price. Like, this is what we're talking about. He really thinks that a manufacturer is going to drop his price from like $100 down to $50, even if he lowers his costs.
So
How do you get through that?
So manufacturing is only about 6% of what's left in America. There was a time when it was a good 65, 70%, before I was even born. And so it takes 10 years to build a decent factory.
Yeah.
10 plus years. So any plan that they're putting in place that the tariffs would now push the work back to America, America's not ready to do it. They're not going to be able to get certain fruits, certain things like avocados, which can't really grow here. So they have to get them from Mexico. They don't have a choice.
Yeah.
And building an avocado farm right now would take years and years and years because they're feeding avocados, for example, to millions and millions of people. So the whole premise, much like a lot of his policies, sound good as talking points.
Right.
But when you start looking at the details, in my opinion, it falls apart.
Empty. So speaking of that, let's switch over to, you know, the LAs and everything. Let's go to, I actually listened to, and I've been on the fence about Newsom. I think he does a good job. I really think that he's been wetting the bed on this whole Charlie Kirk and basically going on dates with them and, oh, my kid loves you and gushed over him and Steve Bannon. He seems like he's really softening up or up to the MAGA. But I actually thought yesterday he gave a pretty good speech. So let's play that clip and listen to it really quick. Part of what he spoke.
Look, this isn't just about protests here in Los Angeles. When Donald Trump sought blanket authority to commandeer the National Guard, he made that order apply to every state in this nation. This is about all of us. This is about you. California may be first, but it clearly will not end here. Other states are next. Democracy is next. Democracy is under assault before our eyes. This moment we have feared has arrived. Look, this isn't just about protests here in Los Angeles. When Donald Trump sought blanket authority to commandeer the National Guard, he made that order apply to every state in this nation.
I can't hear. There it is. Okay. I thought he actually did a really good job in that speech. I think it was 10 or 12 minutes, and he really dropped the gauntlet. And I believe that what he's doing is the blueprint. Look, you got two sides. You have the red team that's in a religious cult, right? They want their white racist plantation owner in the White House. They like it. They want white America because they think that their minority is going away. And then on the other side, you have Democrat. Now there's a handful of them. Like tomorrow, I'm interviewing Eric Swalwell, Jim McGovern, AOC, Bernie.
He's not afraid to stand up to
No,
Trump
and I don't think Bernie's, and I don't think that Newsom is afraid of it. The problem is there's not enough of them doing the same thing. And look at the votes, right? And this has been the problem with the Democratic Party. And I don't know why. It drives me nuts. All 50 of them voted for Marco Rubio, who's siding with Vladimir Putin. 10 of them voted for the CR. 10 of them voted to censure Al Green. You have Cory Booker that gives this great 26-hour thing, right? Yay, Cory, he's doing something. And then what? Oh, I'm going to vote for Charles Kushner who was guilty of tax fraud and witness tampering. And then 10 or 11 Democrats, including Alex Padilla, my senator, votes for the crypto bill. And now you have somebody like, great, we want younger candidates. I agree. You probably agree as well.
Well, give you my 2 cents. Hakeem Jeffries was there for in excess of 25 hours. And my question to Democrats every time we have this talk is, as historical as that was, did he move the needle? He did not.
No.
Kamala Harris gave a great speech. Did it move the needle? Hakeem Jeffries is an outstanding speaker, one of the best. But when you listen, he talks about we have to stick together and democracy's under attack. What I tweet out, and I'll be honest with you, every time I have one of these is where's the leadership? When is someone going to come up with a plan to lead? And Newsom yesterday stepped into that role. He's the first one that stood up to Trump. So if he continues with leadership, I believe he'll become the guy. And he messed up the whole wildfires. The money was $2 billion was never spent, and nobody had a reason why. So he's got some black marks on his record. But now he does have an opportunity to set things right.
Yeah, I think with Hakeem Jeffries, I just don't like the guy at all. I think when I hear him speak, he sounds like, listen, almost 90 million people didn't vote. I think that, and just talking personal stories, and you probably have heard this as well, a lot of my friends that I talk to in family, they're tired of both political parties. And I think with 90 million people not voting, they're kind of like, why should I vote if I don't think the system's going to work for me? And I don't disagree with them. And I feel like when I hear Hakeem Jeffries, I hear the working class, the middle class, the working class. Like it sounds like
great speech, but
it does. What does it do?
Doesn't move the needle,
right? And then like last week, he gave a speech where it was Congressman Nadler's assistant was arrested, right? And what was Hakeem Jeffries' speech? The Democratic Party will respond in the time appropriate with the message that the Democrats deem appropriate. What the hell does that even mean?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So let's say we had a 2029 plan for the Democratic Party, or Democrats and independents. And why do you think Citizens United, taking away Citizens United, do you think that would be on the plan for the 2029 agenda? Because what I'm really asking is why are the Dems allowing this? That's dark money.
Yep.
You don't have to say who you got it from. It could be any amount. So the Dems used to be really against Citizens United, but it looks kind of suspicious when you're talking about a different party.
Right.
It looks a little weird that the Democrats are not going after something that's hurting them badly, or is it hurting them badly?
I believe that most people, again, I know that my things are incidental or anecdotal because I don't talk to millions of people. They want people they want progressive policies. And I don't even think like AOC is not even radical left. She's center in most countries. Universal health care. You want people to have a living wage?
Canada.
Oh my God, Leonard.
Canada.
The horrors. Oh my God. She's so radical. We want a living wage for people. Oh my God. We want clean water and air. Oh my God. What are we going to do? The radical left, George Soros. Like it's like they're afraid to push to the left because they're worried about pushing people away. And by going back to the center right, they're pushing people away. Because here's the reality. Republicans, they're one issue voters, right? Are you Republican? I'm voting for you, right? And Democrats, well, I like Harris, but she only marked 95 out of 100 boxes, so I can't vote for her. That elitist attitude drives me bonkers with Democrats.
Can I bring something up that I've done for several weeks? I've challenged a MAGA or a conservative Republican to call into the show and explain to us if they know the difference, because they are completely different. There's no conservative Republican, and even though they're going to vote for it under political
Kinzinger
pressure,
would be one of them.
because he's a great example.
Yes.
Because he is a conservative Republican. He's not a MAGA.
No.
A conservative Republican would never vote to raise the debt ceiling $4 trillion or $5 trillion. Right. And so MAGAs think they're part of the conservative Republican Party, but they're actually not. And one guy called in and I challenged him to name 3 policies, just 3, or even one policy of the conservative Republican Party that does not match the MAGAs. And he didn't really know what to say. So we're going to get, the phone lines are packed. I can see them right now. And so we're going to get people calling in, but
Yeah.
so far we haven't had anybody call in that really understood the difference. They call themselves a conservative Republican.
They're not.
Right.
I think that
and
party's
they say,
gone,
well, do
Leonard.
you think the big beautiful bill should go through? Oh yeah. Okay, well then you're not a conservative Republican. You're not. You can call yourself that, but you're not.
He's hijacked the party. I would even argue that the Republican Party is now a religious movement because I really think that Trump is their messiah. the Second Amendment is their Bible and MAGA is their religion. I really believe for a lot of these MAGA people, they want 1776 every day for the rest of their lives. Do you disagree with that?
I think that the MAGAs watch the news.
Yes.
And they listen to Donald Trump and his sycophants.
Yes.
And Carolyn Levitt, and they get talking points. And every time they call into the show and speak mostly to Brian, it's so hard for them to win a debate, because when you only have talking points, they sound good. But when you start talking about the facts and what really happened and the numbers and the law and how it applies, they lose. They start interrupting you, and then they go to whataboutism.
Yeah,
what about Hunter Biden's laptop? What about that laptop?
Suit.
And you're like, okay, they're kidnapping people in America, but you want to compare that to Hunter Biden's laptop?
Yeah. We're going to take some calls here in a second, but there is one thing that I think that is going to turn MAGA. This is what I think. And I've done some research on Benito Mussolini, the fascist dictator. So when his people followed him, they went to other countries and they murdered people and took over lands. They had about 130,000 of their own people that were basically slave labor working for free. And his base was fine with that. Now, what happened was, because of this toxic masculinity, this tough guy, I want to own the libs kind of guy, and destroying people, he neglected the economy, which is exactly what President Trump is doing. So what happened is, one day they took him out behind the woodshed and, they unalived him. And then not just that, and the reason they did it, Leonard, was they were living on 1,000 calories a day. They had to buy food on the black market, and they couldn't afford housing. They only cared when it affected them. And then they murdered him, and then they drug him out to the city with his mistress and hung him upside down for 3 days and stoned him. And that's the reason that Adolf Hitler wanted his body cremated, because he didn't want his body humiliated like Benito Mussolini. But I think for most MAGA, until they have to suffer and they lose their Medicare, they get their Social Security checks late, until they can't afford their house and they lose their jobs, none of it's going to matter. I don't think it's going to move them.
I don't think they're going to move at all, because many of them, there have been farmers on on X or YouTube talking about how they're going to have to go out of business because they can't get, the immigration workers are gone. So they have nobody to milk the cows. They have nobody to plow the fields, and they're going to go out of business. So there's a few that realize how they hurt themselves by voting for Trump. But overall, like I said before, in my opinion, one of the issues is you have 77 million people, and a good majority of them that are willing to take a hit, willing to lose money, willing to lose power, willing to lose their business, as long as I said before, them other people aren't getting it.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with people who keep voting against their own best self-interest?
I agree. Do we want to take a break really quick and then we'll get to calls? All right, let's take the first call. So let's go to, let's go spicy. You want to go spicy first?
Absolutely.
All right, JD, what do you want to complain about
It's not
today?
JD Vance, is it?
I don't know. Is this JD Vance?
No. Paul.
Okay, wrong JD.
No couch anybody.
Good afternoon, fellas.
Yes,
Good
sir.
afternoon.
First, I'd like to ask Paul a question. How are we responsible for what happened in the 1700s when the colonies were under the control of the Crown and the British, and they were the ones that brought the slaves here, and it took us until 1862 to free them?
What are you talking about? What does that have to do with anything today?
Well, you started off the show by saying we took the land from the Indians, and we did this to
Didn't
the
we?
black. And
Is this our land, JD? Did we not murder JD? Did we not murder the Native Americans and take their land? Yes or no? Is that a lie?
Yes.
Okay,
Did we not? Hold on. Did we not steal black people from Africa, JD?
Did that? Pardon me?
How did the black people get here? Did we not steal them from Africa and put them on boats?
No.
them?
I just told you that.
Oh,
The British brought them over. They bought
In some
them.
cases.
We didn't steal them. We didn't steal them. The British brought them to the colonies before we were a country. So how are you and I responsible for what happened in 1700?
well,
That's not accurate.
well, hold on, JD. I'll tell you. I'm going to ask you a question then. So let's assume that what you're saying is true. Okay, let's just say it is.
It is true.
Great, but then the Constitution was written how? But who did it benefit? Why were black people only worth 3/5 of a person if what you're saying is true? Why did we design the Constitution and say that black people were less than a white person? Answer that for me then. That's a fair question.
That wasn't in the original Constitution. That came after the Civil War.
Why did we design the Constitution? JD, listen. I'll consider have a serious conversation with you, but listen, I was a Republican until 2016, JD. Okay, I understand that you want to be conservative, and I have no problem with that. What's concerning is whenever you call in here, no matter what I tell you, I can show you facts, court documents.
Paul, I've never spoken to you.
No, but I hear you call in all the time, and it just seems like
I haven't called the show in 7 months.
Okay, this is a different JD.
JD, can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Can I ask him a question?
Please.
Sure, Leonard.
So, the people in America created the market for the slavery, and whether they were brought over or whether we went and kidnapped them and brought them back is irrelevant. We own it because the people who were buying the slaves and creating a market for it came around way before 1862, way before. And when the Emancipation Proclamation came out under Lincoln, that all changed.
They came, Leonard. They came before we were a country.
Correct. Some of them did. Not all of them. Some of them did. But what you're doing is you're applying present day thinking and theology to something that happened at a time when it was acceptable. Okay, so what I believe, I'm not going to speak for Paul, but what he was saying is we created the market. We went over and got them and brought them back. And that happened long before the Civil War, because there was already thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, already in the country. This all happened over about 100-year period.
I think that's what I said, right? They came here.
You said we didn't. You said we didn't go and take them.
Oh, JD, when? Okay.
No, they were being purchased by the crown, by the British people in the 1600s.
Because there was a market here for them.
And then they were being brought to the colonies by the King of England.
Okay, JD, let's move forward a couple hundred years. When were black people allowed to vote in this country? What year?
Pardon me?
What year were black people allowed to vote in the United States of America, this great Christian nation? What year?
The black men were allowed to vote in the United States in 1870.
No.
Ahead of white women. Look it up.
No,
I was surprised as hell when I found out about this 2 years
was
ago.
it 64?
In
the Civil Rights Movement?
Pardon me?
It was in the 1960s.
No, black men were allowed to vote in 1870 by an amendment to the Constitution after the Civil War. They were voting before white women.
When were women allowed to vote?
To,
Sure, JD, when were women allowed to vote? When did we allow them to have the privilege of voting like the men? What year was that? The 20s?
I believe 1919.
Wow, that's so nice of us, isn't it, JD? From 1787 to the 1919s, we allowed women to have the right to vote. That's so nice of us, isn't it, JD? But let's not talk about that, right?
Well, he's accurate.
But look it up, guys.
I did, JD. You were correct.
Different.
February 3rd, 1870,
it was.
the 15th Amendment was added to the Constitution.
But then some states didn't follow it, and then they had...
Isn't that amazing that black men were allowed to vote before white women?
Why is that amazing? They're human beings, just like... Are they not human, just like us? Why is that amazing?
No, I understand. I'm not making that point. I'm just saying it took white women till 50 years later to get the right to vote.
Why?
Before slaves.
Why? Why is that? Why? Listen, we did the civil rights movement in the 60s because a lot of states didn't want to let them vote still. So 100 years later, but just what I'm saying, JD, is this. Just look at it. Since 1787, almost until 1919, women didn't have credit. They couldn't have no-fault divorce until, what, the 1980s? 1980s. Wow, that's so nice. We let women get a divorce. So nice of us, JD. Such a great Christian nation.
That's because the men, were in charge according to the Bible.
The Bible.
Follow your husband.
Is that the same Bible that says you're supposed to bang a porn star and be a convicted felon, JD? And
can I ask JD a relevant? Can I ask you a question that's relevant to the present moment?
Sure.
So part of the Republican policy is to remove the history of slavery, and particularly in Oklahoma, the massacre. Do you agree that we should take the actual American history out of teachings in the schools so that it's not taught anymore? Do you agree with that?
None of it should be taken out. Every black mark, every. Now, let me ask you a question, if I may, gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
You have made some very mistaken statements today, Paul and Leonard both. Paul, you said egg prices are up, gas is up, inflation is up, all wrong. They've been down for the last 3 or 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
Gas prices are down, the highest in 4 years. This is wrong. You are making
Okay, I'm going to bring you a fact,
Leonard,
JD. I'm sorry to
Leonard,
interrupt,
you said
but you're
avocado.
incorrect. So as of today,
Leonard.
inflation was up 0.1%, which is lower than
0.1
expected. But it, okay,
tenth of a percent.
but you said it's not up. It is up. That's not accurate.
It is. It is lower than it was 4 years ago, is what I said.
Okay, if you're asking, I went to the store the other day for a bag full of groceries. I paid $150 of what groceries, which probably in the past would have cost me $70 or $75 or $80.
Hey, I paid
Trust me.
$5.74 for
Trust
gas.
me, they're out of
3
control.
Years ago, 3 years ago in Las Vegas, I paid $5.74
But
for a gallon of gas.
JD, here's the problem. Okay, listen, and I was a Republican, and I don't feel like no matter what I say, you're going to change your mind. You overlooked. It doesn't matter what I tell you here. He's a convicted felon. He's an adjudicated rapist. He caused January 6th, and you know what you're going to say? It's all fake. It's all rigged. It's Antifa. It's the radical left. I don't care. Nobody's perfect, right? Which one do you want to pick?
Are you Nostradamus now? You're going to tell me what's in my mind?
Are you a MAGA or a conservative Republican?
He's MAGA.
First of all, I've been a conservative Republican.
Yeah, you're very conservative voting for an adjudicated rapist, JD. You're such a great Christian, right?
Well, maybe not on social issues.
Not on social issues. Who
Yeah.
cares about rape or
Maybe not on the law, but
sleeping
go
with
ahead.
his daughter? Who cares about that?
Since 1955, and William F. Buckley has been my mentor.
So do you believe the big, beautiful bill should be passed by the Senate and put on the president's desk?
As with any of these big, beautiful bills, the Biden bill of 1.7 trillion,
Okay,
all the bills, all of these giant bills that nobody reads, 2,000 pages. I don't know what's in it. You don't know what's in it.
It was 1,100 pages, and it adds a minimum
yeah.
of 2.4 trillion to the debt, and that is from the CBO, which is part of the government. That's their estimate. Realistic estimates are adding 4 to 5 trillion to the debt ceiling.
Leonard,
now, if you're a conservative, you cannot support that. If you're truly a conservative, so which one are you?
Leonard, I'll explain it this way. No, we cannot keep spending the money we're spending, 36 trillion.
Okay,
in
then
debt.
he's not for the big beautiful bill.
No, hold on, JD.
My,
Here,
chil-
hold
my
on a
children
second.
and
Hold on for a second.
my children and my grandchildren and your children, Leonard, and grandchildren are going to pay the bill. Eventually, we're going to go belly up.
All right, hold on.
Okay, JD, listen for a second. And I know that's really hard. Your guy, your orange rapist, spent $30 million on his orange fat ass golfing. He spent $20 million going to a Super Bowl, $5 million going to a UFC fight.
Military, 134 million for the military.
Yeah, for a parade to make himself look like North Korea.
That's just the occupation in L.A.
Oh,
That's
God.
134 million. And they're saying anywhere from 45 to
okay.
90 million for the parade. There's no way this guy's a conservative.
Yeah,
There's
no,
no
he's
way.
not. He's gone.
He's
All
more
right.
like a libertarian.
Yeah, he's something else. All right, let's go to Carl. Thanks for holding, Carl. Sorry about that. JD was, I guess he hadn't called in 7 months, even though it's been 2 days. I don't know. He's living in like Back to the Future or something, a time warp.
Yeah, wheels were coming off a little bit.
That's what's happening. Look, Len Paul, Brian, it must be proud because you guys are keeping this show up to its top limits, which it always has been. So we just want to
That's nice of you
congratulate
to say
you.
that.
Well, thank you.
Brian knows me. I'm a retired psychologist, and something's scaring me. You talked before about Hitler and dictators and so forth. What's scaring me is what's going to happen to the population of this country when little by little people get more and more afraid to criticize the government. That's what happened back in Germany.
That's exactly what happened.
You criticize, and sooner or later it's going to get to the point where even though if they criticize, they hate the government, they're going to get more and more afraid to criticize, to say anything. They're afraid there'll be a knock on the door, and they're getting a little worried about it. And I think that's what's happening psychologically to the population of this country. And I hate to see it happen because it becomes a dictatorship at that point, at that full point. And my one other point I have is, come the midterm elections, what's going to happen is I think everything's going to be turned around. I think the Congress and the Senate are going to be taking more of a Democratic bent because a lot of the Republicans, I've talked to friends who are Republicans, conservative Republicans, they're getting sick and tired of Trump. And what's going to happen is I think they're going to it's going to be taken over, the Senate and the Congress
Yeah.
in the midterms.
Well, Carl, you
And
see what happened to South Korea when Yoon Suk Yeol declared martial law for the entire country. Within a few weeks, he was out. So I believe there's a kind of a power grab with the military that's going on right now. But do we have time for me to ask him a quick question?
No, I think we're going on to the next caller.
Moving on.
I think we have a special caller calling.
Thank you, Carl.
Oh, so yeah, he's and I'm still saying, it's JD's. I think JD's beyond help. It doesn't matter, and I've figured that a lot. Where it doesn't matter what kind of facts, evidence, it doesn't matter. They just basically owning the libs seems to be the only thing that really.
He's
matters.
another example of somebody with talking points.
Right.
They came in with these talking points about inflation, about gas, and then once you start providing facts, he goes, "Well, only 0.1%." I know, but that's only 0.1%. But what you said was inaccurate.
And they always go back to like one random piece of information. It's like, oh, remember in 1604, or remember this one thing that Joe Biden did 49 and a half years ago. It's like, what are you talking about? They always have to have something. There's this, when we talked to April Joy yesterday, one of the things that she talked about was in her book was about this, how they're always the victim of something. And she had a name for it and it's in my phone, but it just seems like no matter what happens, right? You go like, oh, Ashley Babbitt, she was the victim, or the lady that stormed the Capitol, she was the victim, or this one white person, they're the victim. It just seems like, or who's that girl that finishes like 5th place and all she does is go around and blame trans people. She got into it with Simon Bowen.
Yeah, I don't remember her name.
She finished 5th place, and now she goes around being like, oh, I'm the victim, the horrible thing. And we have like 40,000 plus people every year that die from gun violence, but she wants to focus on 12 trans people in college sports. So, all right, we're good. Let's go to... Do it. Uh-oh, who is this? This is JD?
Is he back?
Is he back? We had a special caller, I thought.
You do have a special caller.
Oh, no, he is definitely special.
Mr. Brian Shapiro, I just can't leave my show without calling in for 2 minutes.
Oh, no.
And I wanted to say you guys are doing a great job. Thanks for holding the fort down. You guys are great. And I also wanted to say the guy who just called in, JD, is banned from the show, but he's a coward and he only tries to call in when I'm not there. The reason why he's banned from the show, besides the fact that he's a complete right-wing buffoon, imbecile, and a racist, also he complains about me and he wants me off the air. So, but yet he still listens to the show and calls in when I'm not there because he's a coward. So I just wanted to let everybody know.
I think when you come back, you should have him call in and put your wig on and pretend to be Pam Bondi. And maybe he'll treat you differently if he thinks that you're a woman.
Yeah,
he looked good. Brian, you look good with that wig on.
He did look good.
That was really good.
Did you see his eyeshadow? It was like a Hello
I had to look
Kitty
twice.
color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this. This is a very calm Brian. Normally I'd be yelling at JD, but I'm in beautiful San Diego. It's like 75 degrees. I just had lunch with a friend I haven't seen in years. I'm going to see my favorite band tonight. I'm living it up in San Diego right now, but I just wanted to say you guys are doing a great job. I was listening in the car. Keep up the great work, and I appreciate you guys, man.
We appreciate you, Brian.
Do we get a report card later, Brian? Like from like 1 out of 10 or like A down to an F? Like, do we get a grade when this is over?
Well, in Donald Trump's words, many people are saying you guys are doing a
lot of people. I was going to bring that up. A lot of people are calling in. The phone lines are packed.
Many people are saying, and while there might be a few people that miss me, many people are saying that you guys are doing great. So keep up the great work. Hold the fort down. I'm going to watch the rest of the show, and I'm at an outlet mall right now somewhere in San Diego buying some new gear.
Oh, that sounds like fun. You should have brought your little GoPro with you.
I will say this, though. I'm staying away from Los Angeles.
That's wise.
So for any of you that think I'm going to be going to Los Angeles and chasing down Antifa or any of that nonsense, it ain't happening, guys. It ain't happening. I'm here on vacation.
Hey, Leonard and I already decided if you get a sunburn from nude bathing on the beach, we are not putting the lotion on it. Now, Nubchuck, you know what? Nubchuck said he might.
How much can we show on the show? How much of Brian are we allowed to show?
I don't know, but
when he comes back.
Nubchuck can't stand up anymore.
There's no way in hell I'm doing that.
Oh, look who made an appearance!
Even Nubchuck chimed in.
I would say that a few of the MAGA people on the YouTube chat, their dream would be to go nude bathing with me.
Oh my God! What is happening? I can't do this.
Okay, I'm gone. If I had a fetish for right-wing imbeciles with an IQ under 20, then maybe they would have a chance. But I don't.
Oh, I can't even pot him down.
I'm going to
Leonard.
make him a giant cross out of popcorn and make him wear it on the show with the blonde wig.
You're a left-wing buffoon, Brian. I just want to say that.
I love you guys. I love you guys.
Cut him
Keep
off.
up the
He's
good
banned
work.
from the show.
Love you too,
I'm
man.
joking. See you, Brian.
Thanks for letting us have a chat.
You guys,
Man,
all right.
we really get some crazy callers on the show. Someone pretending to be Brian.
There's a crazy caller.
I don't think that was Brian Shapiro. I think that's fake news. Who's next?
It was too calm for Brian Shapiro.
Look at the super chat.
Oh yeah, super chat. Let's see here. Oh, where is it? Leonard for governor of Nevada.
That's 9. That's 9,
Leonard
right?
for governor.
No,
But he
Chuck's
only
on the
gave you
list.
$1.99. You know what? The economy's changing, Leonard. If it was a Biden economy, it would probably be $9.99.
Yeah, it was. I would definitely work on the economy, but on a separate note, since we asked,
Yeah.
it looks like the casinos are starting to empty out a little bit. Did you notice that?
I heard. Yeah. Let's go to number 2. Yeah, I think they're down like 10%. They've had a couple thousand people lay off. 2. Let's go to Terry next. Nobody wants to hear us talk, Leonard. We're just talking to each other.
No, bring him in.
This is like a blind date.
Wait till the
in
last like
essence.
15 minutes. That's a rapid fire, right?
Woo, let's go. All right, Terry, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing fine. Welcome.
Thank you.
And good to see you, Leonard.
Hi, Terry.
Hi. I wanted, Paul, I wanted to thank you for bringing up the whole topic on white Christian nationalism. I had a great opportunity the other night to go to a presentation at a very progressive church in my community, and it was seriously a master class. It was incredible about the things that I learned about some things that I knew and some things that I didn't know. It was a great lecture. And one of the things I learned that apparently a lot of these groups like Heritage Foundation, Turning Point, have all coalesced into these huge groups that amass tremendous amount of money to push through their narratives, to give to Donald Trump when he's running for offices, to give to other Republicans that are running. It was blowing my mind the whole time. Some other things that I was made aware of is apparently, and this particular person was a professor from a theological seminary, and he actually talked. He apparently has a PhD in the New Testament, and one of the things, of course, that fascinated me was how they cherry pick scripture.
It is.
How they, yeah,
it is
absolutely.
And one of the reasons I actually even started doing this, and again, I just started off on a TikTok. I told my wife, she's like, okay, like, you want to go to the park and make a video? I'm like, yeah, sure. Now it's like, okay, now it's obviously it's ballooned into, me being here talking to you, but it's this judgment, right? Like, who's then, according to them, who's supposed to be in a church? If I lie, if I'm divorced, if I'm a felon, I mean, if I sexually abuse women, if I cause an insurrection, oh, they're okay as long as you're Republican and you're white. But if you're gay and you're trans, that's outside the design of God. It's just crazy how you're supposed to love thy neighbor as thyself. And these people go to church and pretend to be something for 1 hour with their Joe and the Ho bumper stickers and their F Joe Biden flag. And they praise Jesus, peace, love, and prosperity. But, we just can't let the gay people in here because that's against the will of God. It's absolutely gross.
Paul, can I ask you, Terry, I'm going to ask Paul a question.
Uh-oh.
So in the Bible, Jesus, the Pharisees are giving him a hard time because he's sitting around talking to tax collectors and criminals. And what does Jesus say back? He says, I came here for the sinners.
Yeah.
So if you are judgmental, then you're really not going. They must have not read that chapter, or they don't understand it. And if one of them wants to call in, I think Paul can probably give him a real good explanation on what exactly that meant.
They just want
Yeah, I mean, that's what they do, is that they cherry pick all the scripture to make it, to make it work for their narratives. One of the other things I learned, as he went through this, it was an hour and a half presentation, and this professor was saying, what they like to do also is they just pick these things they mainly want to focus on, which is they feel that empathy is a sin.
Yes.
Empathy is a sin. Are you kidding me?
But that's the
Paul,
central theme of the Bible. That's one of the central
I remember
themes.
you talking about that you're an empathetic person the other day. You were talking about that. And so they consider that a sin, which just blew me away.
Well, but this is who they've always been, right? When I talked, did you see her interview yesterday with April Joy? She wrote the book,
I did. And
Star Spangled Jesus.
Her book was actually in one of the slides.
Yeah, she's awesome.
That was, Yeah.
These people have never ever wanted Jesus. They always have picked Barabbas. Judas Iscariot and the Sanhedrin were the original MAGA religious cult. They crucified Jesus, Leonard, in the name of God. They literally murdered a man because he was going against God. So that's why this MAGA movement's like this, right? They're trans, they're gay, they're LGBTQ. Oh my God, it's a sin.
And all Jesus was doing was preaching how you should love your neighbor, how you should do acts of kindness,
right?
And you should take care of the poor, and you should help the elderly.
Yep.
And he never really challenged. He never really challenged them. They killed him because he was preaching love and peace, and how to treat your neighbor well.
They don't want that. Look at January 6th, right? We're gonna hang a noose for Mike Pence in the name of Jesus.
Yeah, how is everything they're doing in LA bad, according to Trump?
I know.
But everything they did on January 6th, those guys were they were patriots.
Because they're white.
This guy was very well researched, and he brought up two other things that kind of blew my mind. Was 8 days before that insurrection, a collaborative group of these people got together and came down to the White House and visited with Trump. And supposedly some of these people that are in these big coalitions were also given a marshal status to go. They were there on January 6th. It's very concerning. And thank you, Paul, for bringing it up. I truly appreciate it.
Yeah, and for everyone out there, we'll go next. Thanks for the call. Is one of the movies you want to watch. It's called Bad Faith. It's about 90 minutes. It actually has I think it's Ron Filipowski, Ruck Wilson on there. And it talks about how this movement started with the 7 Mountain Mandates, going back to Reagan, and about the Heritage Foundation. It's basically white Christian nationalists, and they want to, evidently this is a Christian nation, Leonard. I didn't know that. So where we go next? Rebecca? Rebecca is next. Hi, Rebecca. This is Paul identifying as Brian Shapiro today.
Hi, Paul. Hi, Leonard. You guys are doing a great job. I just wanted to remind everybody that this Saturday, check your local No Kings. There's going to be protests all over the country during Trump's birthday parade.
Yep.
So I'm going to be going out there. I'll be in Santa Cruz, but they're having them all over the country. And I just want to remind everybody, you got to keep standing up.
You know what I was thinking about, and I'm not endorsing this. I'm just saying, if I was to have like the ideal dream, I think that everybody should line up on the streets and throw like Big Macs at him. But he would probably eat them.
Well, I'd be down for that too.
Is that
well, he said anybody that protests
I'm just saying,
that day,
hypothetically speaking,
it's going to be very bad for people who protest that day. He doesn't want anybody protesting. But let me tell you, if this social media invitation starts to go viral, they could be in for a real large protest.
Oh, they're going to have probably, I'm guessing 5 to 10 million people.
Well, they're going to tear up the streets with the tanks and the heavy artillery, and Trump said he'll pay for it, and they try to tell him that it doesn't, with our money, with our tax money.
Oh, that's nice, to make it look like North Korea.
Well, Trump said if anybody protests at his parade in Washington, D.C., they'll be met with deadly force.
Sure.
They don't want to do that.
He did say that?
He said deadly force? I know he said very, very strong because he's an insecure little man.
Something force. I don't know if it was deadly. I don't know if it was strong. But when I hear the word force,
yeah.
No,
he's trying to use intimidation and fear to try to keep Americans, in my opinion, from a peaceful protest, which gives them the rights under the First Amendment. And that really is what a lot of MAGA is about. They want their rights, but they really don't want anybody else to be able to speak because it makes them sound so uneducated.
Let me ask you a question, Leonard.
My 76-year-old mother, she goes out every week in her small little town in New Mexico, and she protests. So
good for her.
What do you think, Leonard, about? I've seen I've seen a handful of videos of these military guys that are doing this, Red Kingdom, or like it's this toxic masculinity. It's almost like they want to do something to the protesters. That's is there a part of it that some of these guys that are from this, I forgot, it's like 4-7 or whatever it's called, like they're not meant to be peaceful people. Like they're out there to be attack dogs on people.
Like that. As you know, I spent 25 years as a police officer, and I retired as a lieutenant, so I had a lot of people under me.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to manage a lot of A-dogs, a lot of alphas.
Yeah.
And so a lot of them, what I did was I I drew clear lines and boundaries, and if they cross those boundaries, use of force wise, or they went over, or were overly aggressive with citizens, I would take care of it. So there are people who want to go out there and do that kind of thing to people, but I believe that so far, from what I've seen on TV, the police are handling it pretty well, and they don't really need the help of the military. And I think the whole military thing, because Trump wants to spread it to New York and Chicago, and Dallas is having a problem,
Omaha,
and the Trump said straight out that this is nationwide. He'll send them anywhere they need to go.
Yeah, my gut tells me back in January that his end game is martial law. I really believe that. I think that's what he wants to
1940, 1941,
I
around that
believe
area, same thing.
All right, who's next on the list, Numchuck?
Oh, them lines are lit up.
Yep.
Keep calling.
Is
Keep
it
calling.
Dave. Can I call you Day?
Hey, how you doing? Want to be Brian? What's going on today?
I am.
Brian.
I could put my wig on if I can find it. I have to put some disinfectants on it because make sure it doesn't have a head lice. Well, he doesn't have any hair. I just feel like that doesn't work. Okay, never mind. What's going on, man?
Well, what's going on, man? I've listened to your conversations many times. I think you both are doing a great job. But I want to pick your brain a little bit because I don't know if you guys are willing to answer this. Would you guys consider yourself Gen Xers? Or
I'm a baby
like
boomer.
Age-wise?
Now I'm telling my age. I'm a boomer.
I'm 48.
I worked real hard for a living,
49,
and
so I'm Gen X.
Sure.
I don't think I deserve everything on a platter, so I'm not Gen X.
You're not Gen X?
No, I'm not even
The
close.
only reason,
What you got, buddy?
okay, well, here's my theory. Okay, I went to a Catholic school for 9 years. Okay, I did everything, and I'm listening to all this, and I'm digesting all. The thing I look at, and I want to get your opinion, do you think maybe part of the problem is just that era of people? Because here's the thing. I'm going to pick on somebody like my grandparents, okay, who, God rest their soul, they passed away. But they were sometimes, I feel, the most entitled people. And, I look at different things like what Trump does and, just that age group. I used to work at nursing homes. And it's almost like I'm reliving doing it all over again.
I think is, an interesting thing I saw, and I don't know where I saw this, and I've talked to some people. They did a survey of a bunch of people that were, when they were probably my age or younger, right? We would ride bikes, and they would see how far they went from their house. It would be 2, 3, 4, 5 miles. And as the years have gone on, that distance has shortened. They're almost at home all the time now. I mean, we used to be like, hey, go drink out of the hose, go play in the mud. And I think that's what's happened. I think a lot of it is that obviously society's changed, but then we've also, I think part of it is technology. I mean, it definitely has its
face-to-face
perks.
conversations.
Yeah, we've got away from face-to-face conversations, like playing on headphones and having people rage out. And
They
throw
don't
their
even like to
microphones.
make phone calls. They'd rather just text.
Yeah, I even called somebody, a family member I have. His name is Cookie. Hi, Cookie, if you're watching. But I just every couple of weeks I talk to him, or like my sister, I call them, or like my buddy, I call him, or my wife if I'm traveling or something. I just feel like there's something about calling people, and I'm still old-fashioned. When I go on vacation, like I went to New York last week, I get postcards. I got an aunt in Kansas. I got a cousin in Germany. That's where my great grandfather's from. So I still kind of old-fashioned. My wife is she's a nerd when it comes to postcards and cards and handwritten stuff. And if she sends something out, she puts she has to get it ready. It has to have stickers and a handwritten note. And then so if I get something, if I buy something, Dave, from somebody, and it has a sticker or something, she's like, let me see. I just think we miss some of that as a society, and I think we've gotten away from that, the human emotions of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and here's the part I'm going to tie this all together. You're going to love what I'm about to say. Like I said, I was a Catholic. I'm actually Lutheran now. Went to Catholic school for 9 years, and I'll never forget the one thing that happened in my life that changed everything as far as what I see the Catholic Church. And this is the summary of the Catholic Church. And then I sit there and think about MAGA, and I'm like, my God, this is what it is. I was involved in a very serious car accident. I was hit by a drunk driver. And I was physically pushed. I was T-boned and pushed all the way up an entire block. Guy didn't even know he hit me. Here's the thing. I remember I had a lot of questions because, I started second-guessing everything in my life. I remember going to my church, wanting to talk to the priest. You want to hear what I was told by the priest? I was told, well, I don't have time for you. Now, this is the same priest that, you know, you better make sure you have your donations. You better have this, you have that.
Yeah.
So my question is why have we, part of this is, have we kind of gone the other way as far as, you know, not realizing the separation of church and state?
Yes, it's all about the money. Absolutely.
It is. I you know, I made a couple of videos 2 or 3 months ago about the church, and a lot of churches, in my opinion, they talk about Jesus of peace and love, and they don't denounce Trump. And I had a conversation with my pastor about this. We talked about it, and he's like, "Well, do you want to talk about it?" I'm like, "No, I don't want you to talk to me about it. I want you to be a person of faith, and I want you to sit in front of the church in the podium and put your money where your mouth is. By your fruit shall you be judged. Don't tell me about it."
How's a nonprofit worth tens of millions or hundreds of
Right.
millions?
Listen,
that makes no sense.
It doesn't, but here's the thing. They should be able to have church in a parking lot at a Denny's in someone's backyard. It doesn't have to be in a big church. But when the church is lukewarm, that's the problem. This is about right or wrong. This isn't about I want to upset people. I'll give you an example. I had someone that used to work for me a while ago, and she was like, "Paul, don't you know that, you know, people know you this?" I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. If not me, then who, Leonard? If it's not, if everybody just speaks out and doesn't say something because they're worried about what somebody might say, we're never going to fix this country. That's the problem. A lot of people have hid behind their privilege. What are we going to say? Oh, we have a difference of opinion. What? You voted for a rapist. You voted for a felon. You voted for an insurrectionist. You voted for a guy that has dinner with Nick Fuentes. That's not a difference of opinion. It's a difference in goddamn values.
You know what church is? Church is 2 or more gathered in my name.
Yeah.
Is what Jesus said. He didn't say anything about a building or a brick building. He didn't say anything about giving money or tithing, where you're required to give 10% of your income. It's become a very lucrative business. And I would include I'm a Catholic, but I would include the Catholic Church in that. I mean, they have billions of dollars.
And it's not just the church. I was watching a video today about Kyrie Irving, and he was talking. And the people in the locker room don't want to say anything. They know what's happening is wrong, because they don't want to lose fame and fortune. And even like for me, when I make my videos, I could make cat videos, Leonard, and I can dance on my head and do like dude perfect videos with Frisbees, but then I would be a hypocrite, because I feel like for me, this is my purpose is to help stop fascism. I'll give you one last example, and then we'll go on. The next caller was, I was meeting with Swalwell, right? About 3 weeks ago, we had a town hall, and he was running a little late, and he's like, "Oh, you want to do a TikTok live?" And I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
I could do it, but I didn't. And here's why. Because could I have done that and got a lot more viewers and likes? I said, yeah, but you know what? Like we talked about before, we could talk about this later or tomorrow. I really believe that a general strike needs to happen in this country. And I said, I can either be a guy that wants to sell out and make money and get likes and views, or I could be the person that does the right thing behind the scenes when it's not sexy and actually fix the problem. And I want to be a serious person. I want to be a man of my word and be a person of integrity. So that's what
I've seen some of your videos, and you're very very forthcoming about your feelings, about your history,
I'm
and
not
your
perfect.
family. And I know, but that's hard for a lot of people to do. And I think that it's very helpful and very Christian and sometimes therapeutic for people, because they're listening to what happened to you, and obviously relating it to their own life. So I think that's important.
And I grew up with a dad that was racist. I mean, he would use the N-word and he would use Jewish slurs. And then when I got married, my mother-in-law happens to be Jewish, and I said something once, and he's like, "What'd you say?" I'm not going to repeat it on air. And I said it again. He's like, "You can't." Well, I'm like, "That's a slur." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I had heard that my entire life, and I thought it was normal. But then she told me, and I chose. I'm like, I can choose to be this way, or I can choose to be a better person, and I chose a different path. So we,
Right.
you know,
And
at
that's
some point,
what
Dave,
we
we have to choose to either use our childhood as a stumbling block or a stepping stone. That's a choice. And I think when people use that excuse when we're our age or older, be like, well, my dad was like that. Well, you're not your dad. That was 40 years ago. How long are you going to blame your parents for who you are today, right?
That's no excuse.
No.
Thanks,
All right,
Dave.
Thanks for calling in, bud. Who's next? CJ? Let's do CJ. He's been holding for a little while. So we're getting there, guys.
Hey.
What's going on, CJ?
Well, first off, this is my first time seeing you two guys.
Well, this is my first time hosting ever, so, you know, this is our first time.
All righty. I caught your first names, Paul and Leonard. I'd like to be able to get more in touch with y'all for future stuff, because I got some good stuff that I want to share with y'all.
What kind of stuff?
stuff that's would be a devastating weapon against the nationalist Christians.
Okay, I think probably your best route to go is if you look. I don't know if you're watching online or not on YouTube, but it does have Brian Shapiro's email listed there.
Yeah, I got his email address. I was hoping to be able to also contact you because you guys seem to be even better at this.
Well, the thing is, I don't. I'm a guest host, so I don't know how much information I am authorized to give out. But I can tell you this: if you send it to Brian and you say, "Hey, what does Paul say about this?" or "What does Leonard say about this?" then we will definitely address it and get back to you.
Okay, I'll give them forward it to you. But anyway, just to give you one small example, you were earlier talking about that they have their new Messiah, right?
They're Antichrist, which he is. Not the Antichrist, but there's many Antichrists before the one.
Well, actually, he may be the Antichrist, but
no, he doesn't fit the criteria.
He doesn't know.
Not yet. Not yet. He doesn't.
But first, let me get to him being seen as a Messiah, as actually Christ returned in a different form. If you go to Amazon and type in Hellguard, Muller, if you know how to put the two dots over the U, do that.
Okay.
But that helps with the search. Hellguard, Muller, and like President at the end of it. Be sure you get the right book. This is going to blow your mind.
Okay.
This book was promoted at the rallies in 2023.
Okay, thank you, buddy. Thanks for the call.
Appreciate that.
All right, who's next? Diane?
Hi.
Hello, Diane. How are you?
I'm fine. Hi, Paul, Leonard.
Hi there.
I just wanted to get your opinion. I was just reading an article that came out in Forbes about 3 hours ago, and it said that the federal appeals court judges suggested that they'll be willing to move President Trump's appeal from his conviction from the state courts to federal, which will make it much easier.
They haven't decided on that yet.
I know.
Oh, okay.
But I just wanted to get your opinion on it. If they do move it to federal court, then it'll be much easier for them to do away with his felony conviction.
Well, we don't necessarily know that. But in the states, especially in the Southern District of New York, they are holding his feet to the fire. So he's trying to get out of state court, and I think that he would have an easier time making the argument, because what he's going to do is, even though some of the things that they're bringing up were a few days before he actually became president, he's going to try to say that that they count as his immunity for being president, and that so it'll go up one level. It could go to the second district court of appeals, which is almost the highest. And if it's not successful there, it can go to the Supreme Court. And keep in mind, the Supreme Court can pick up that case anytime they want. It wouldn't be in their best interest. They're going to wait for it to go through. But I don't believe that they'll be successful because they're state charges, and you can, like I said, you can appeal, but we'll just have to wait and see. Some people think he'll be successful. I do not.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Have a good day. Hey,
Thank you.
before we get to the next caller, it just you don't have to give out your information just because I do content stuff. So if you guys want to follow me on YouTube, I just started my channel a couple of months ago, so it's still new. It's just Paul Lance, Paul for Equality on here. You can find it. It's very easy. It's got like a yellow, red, and blue label. It's the same on TikTok as well. So if you guys want to follow me on there, I try to put it on both platforms because, yeah, I think I have I actually passed Brian. I meant to brag about him. I actually passed him on TikTok. I have 81,000 followers now. He only has 79. What a loser.
He's at about 120,000 subscribers.
116.
Yeah, I knew it was right in that area.
Yeah.
So he's he's predicting 200, maybe 250,000 by the end of the year. So if you're listening and you haven't subscribed to the Pushing the Limits show yet, go ahead and get that done. Let's subscribe. Let's get the numbers up.
All right, let's go to Marky Mark. What's going on, Mark? Thanks for holding, bud.
No problem. Hey, Paul, Leonard.
Hey, Mark.
Couple of things, but first, JD, he has a middle initial. It's A, and his first name is Just A, and I'll be nice and say Richard. So that's who JD is.
I know.
Richard.
Can we say douche on there? Is that
I don't think that's what he meant.
Oh,
that's
here I am making up words.
Is it a 4-letter word that ends with K?
It sounds like truck.
You can say Richard.
Little Richard?
Just
is that what
Richard.
we're saying? Little. Oh wow.
Do you think
This
that
is now a PG-13 show?
And
by
this
the
is
way.
not for comedy purposes, but do you think he was calling us from the couch by any chance?
Oh man, he might have been in the couch on a. Can you imagine, Brian? Okay, just picture this for a second because I want to ruin your guys' dinner. This is probably Brian was sitting on a couch with Nicole Mitchell, like sunbathing on a couch with no sunscreen. Think about, you know how white that would be?
You think he gloved up or
That's
no?
like a new level of white.
You think he gloved up or? No?
I don't know.
Probably
man.
can't talk about that.
I don't know.
No, that's pretty funny, Mark. We appreciate that.
We
comment,
don't want
Mark.
Brian to call back in and go to timeout. No.
Brian's gonna fire us.
Yeah. He doesn't want to fly back. He's gonna have to deal with us for a couple more days.
Well, I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to throw the show off its tracks.
No, it's okay.
This
to
is
have
all
a
your
comedy.
fault.
But I've been sounding the alarm every single day, no matter who I speak to. All right, I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to hang up and let you answer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is according to law. This is what's in law for Congress and the executive branch and the legislation branch. That Congress has the ability to call martial law if there's any type of civil disturbance for the whole country. That's legal. And they can also suspend elections. Now, here's my question. Why would Trump take a risk of possibly losing the House or the Senate, then causing him to have a lame duck 2 year left in the presidency when he can have Congress call martial law, suspend all elections, including the midterms and the presidency, which is allowed by law, and not risk losing the House?
Okay.
Why would he not elect to do that?
Martial
I'll hang
law
up and
cannot
let
be instituted. I mean, I guess you could argue that Trump would do it anyway, but there has to be more than disturbances for martial
Yes,
law.
but they can do it in each state. 5, 6, 8, 10 states.
I think that's
This is
kind
a
of what
warm-up.
he's trying to do. There's no insurrection yet, but he's trying to borrow powers from the Insurrection
Yes.
Act, and he's doing it in each state, which I think is part of a much bigger plan. And they can suspend
Exactly.
elections, but I think what the answer to your question is Trump doesn't plan on leaving office. So I don't think he
No.
cares about the
Right.
midterms. I don't think he cares about the next election because
He doesn't care.
he's confident.
Yeah.
Steve Bannon said there's several secret ways that they could get past the Constitution, and he don't want to give any details yet, but they see about 4 or 5. And then when you read the Constitution and it says you can only serve 2 terms, he goes, well, that's what
Consecutive, right.
that's what the courts are about. The interpretation of the law, and the way we interpret it is not the way you interpret it. So they said straight out they're going to fight it. So I don't think Trump plans on leaving, and I think that's why he's so reckless. And he's counting on that presidential immunity to apply to everything he does.
Well, and I also think
But one thing, I do think he cares about the midterms because they will halt his presidency. He won't be able to get anything passed if the Democrats
He'll just use executive
win
orders.
either.
Yeah, I don't think I actually don't think
You
he
can't rule
cares.
by that, though. You can't rule by that.
I don't think he cares at all. They're not even doing anything right now. He's running everything through executive orders.
So out of all the executive orders that he's written, 81 of them are tied up in court. He's written more executive orders than any other president. But here's the upside for us. If everything is based on executive orders, when the next president takes over, it's fairly easy to undo.
Yeah, they're not law.
Because he's not running anything through Congress.
Right.
He's not running anything through the Senate. He's not changing the laws. He's just using executive orders. So
if there's a Democratic president.
that is it doesn't have to be. It could be a Republican like an Adam Kissinger. Okay, he's a very smart guy. He's a conservative Republican, and he goes by what is right and what is wrong, and it seems to be very moralistic. And
Yeah.
I think Adam Kissinger, even though he's a conservative Republican, would undo all of Trump's executive orders on the first day if he could.
I do.
What's the odds of Kissinger? What's the odds of him getting in? Though?
A Kissinger, I forget how to say his name.
Oh, Adam Kinzinger.
Kinzinger.
He's a good guy.
Kissinger, right?
I do think the one thing that he might try to do is at the end of his presidency, he might step away and then have a JD Vance somehow pardon him. That's what I think. There's a
Some
possibility.
people
of
say that
happening.
before he leaves, he'll appoint him, and then JD will they'll work on having him stay.
All right.
That was a great question, though.
Yep. All right, buddy. Let's go to Pat. Who was next? Pat? Bruce? Can I call you Pat?
I'm Pat.
Hello. Hi, Pat. I'm
Pat.
Paul. Identifying as Brian.
Hi, Paul. Hi, Paul and Leonard.
Hi there.
I'm calling it the Paul and Leonard show today.
The P&L show. I like that. It's like peanut butter and jelly.
P&L.
But he's identifying as Brian.
Yeah. But I have hair, so I'm not sure if I'm really fitting the bill that well.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. We might have to get more creative.
And I don't have a couch.
Okay, I got a few things I want to throw at you.
All right.
One, I don't want them throwing Big Macs at them. I want them throwing Whoppers for Burger King.
Is that
Why?
with like
Right?
mayonnaise and ketchup
Why,
on them?
why Whoppers?
Because it's from Burger King, and it's the King's Day.
It should be Burger Wannabe King. They should have a wannabe Whopper.
Call him Taco King.
Or you know what? You know what's even better? The Whopper Junior. Oh, that would really get them. Or even a hamburger from the kids meal. The kids meal hamburger would be the worst.
Maybe they should throw. What about throwing White Castle at him?
Oh God, he lives in a White Castle.
The white
Wow, I see what you did
supremacists
there.
would love that.
Oh my
Okay,
God. All right,
so
let's get back
here's
on track
my
here.
question. Why doesn't Gavin Newsom call up the National Guard to protest the protesters?
Because he
from
said he
MAGA?
doesn't need them. He said the
Okay,
police can
but-
handle it.
Well, I agree with that, but before Trump can do it, that could be a counter. Okay. Another thing I had to say, somebody mentioned earlier, way early in the show, about why the Latinos supported Trump so much. My daughter's nanny is a Venezuelan refugee, and she speaks very little English. She's been here 7 years legally, and she's seeking asylum. She's not gotten approval yet, so she's shaking in her boots because
Did she vote for
figures
Trump?
She's going to get supported. She did. Well, no, she can't vote, but she listens to the Spanish news because it's too hard for those Spanish-speaking people to follow the English news. So they're listening to Fox News in Spanish.
Yeah.
So they're not getting the full news. They're getting Fox News' version, which is, I mean, the same thing that Americans who speak English are getting, who have, all these warped ideas. So I think that's a big thing. Is that
it is?
Let's see. What other countries are controlling state media?
Brainwashed.
What other countries are controlling state media? Do you know?
I think Russia is controlling American state media.
What about North Korea? They controlled. What about back in the Hitler
Probably.
days? One of the first things they did was tell everyone that the media was evil and not to listen to them, and have one state media so they can control all the information.
And when Benito Mussolini came to power, he ran a newspaper. It was called Papel de something, 6 days a week. For whatever reason, he didn't run it Monday. But when he got to power, it was basically the original Fox News, which is just propaganda. And even after he took over as the fascist leader, his brother took over for the paper and ran it while he was in office to keep the propaganda going. So, and we even used propaganda during the Cold War with like Ukraine and the Baltic states when we tried to get them to break away from the Soviet Union. We did a lot of that propaganda too back in the day.
Oh, yeah. And I'm not going to argue that there isn't a whole ton of false news on both sides. But the stuff that they're hearing now, I mean, when you've got live video, this is happening in real time, live video, how can you dispute it?
Well,
I come from a whole family of devout Republicans. I am so the black sheep in this family now.
Yeah.
And it's like, I argue. I have one brother that I argue with all the time about it. We like to debate our politics, but I have no use for them. And it's horrible. I feel terrible, but I feel like at this point, they have had the chance. Some of them are starting to come around, but they've had the chance to see what this moron is doing. And if they haven't jumped ship by now, then...
Let me interject for one quick second if I could. Somebody that at my work, I have someone that cleans her office, and she happens to be Hispanic. And before the election, I asked her, he goes, "What do you think about January 6th?" And she looked at me like, "What are you talking about?" She had never heard of it. And listen, it would be easy to blame her and say, "Are you crazy? How do you not know about that?" But here's the reality. with so many people living in poverty with this class war, right? We have so many poor people and this handful of rich people. They're working she works 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. The driver yesterday had a couple of kids. He works 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. He's like, I go home and fall asleep on the couch.
Right out of the dictator fascist playbook.
And you don't hear any of the stuff that goes on because you're just basically you're living in the Hunger Games where you're working to live. And then you die, they replace you with somebody else. Then you die, then they replace you with somebody else in the Matrix, and they suck you dry like the Duracell battery, and then they throw you out and they put a new one in there. I mean, that's basically where we are. So they don't get all the news because, anyway.
Thanks, Pat.
Well, thanks for the call.
Thanks for your call. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks.
Have a good day.
You guys have a great day. Bye-bye.
Let's go to Bruce. You know, I hear Bruce, I think of the shark from Finding Nemo. You're not a shark, are you, Bruce?
I think of Bruce Lee.
I know.
Bruce, you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, buddy. How you doing? Thanks for waiting. Sorry about that.
No problem. Hopefully I get a little bit of time to talk.
All right.
So, yeah, excited delirium with Floyd Mayweather. That was basically a term that was invented by coroners to excuse the police.
I'm having a hard time understanding.
He's talking about excited delirium.
Oh.
And he's talking about when somebody's either mentally ill or high on drugs, and they fight the police for several minutes, and they fight so hard that they fight to exhaustion, and they pass away. And so for years, the police were using excited delirium as a defense and saying, hey, you know, we didn't end his life. We were just trying to control him, and that he fought so hard and his heart was pumping so fast. It's like going sprinting like 5 miles without stopping, without any reason to feel pain or think about it. And then your body just expires like a motor, like running a motor as high as you can for 5 minutes, and it just explodes.
That seems to be a new phenomenon just in the last 15 years.
Well, they're not using it. So there was a time when excited delirium was very popular, and everybody was behind it and believing in it and the science. But now he's correct. You're correct, Bruce, that it's really not working as a defense anymore. They're looking more at what kind of drugs were they on, what kind of use of force was used. Was it pepper spray? Was it taser? Were there multiple officers? Were they kneeling on his back? Were they piling on top of the person? And so it is scrutinized. It's still used as a defense, but it's scrutinized much closer than it used to be. If that's
the
what
other
you
thing
meant.
is, the other thing is, correct me if I'm wrong, but homicide is considered ending somebody's life prematurely. So if somebody's committing suicide, jumps off a high rise, and somebody shoots them on the way down, they still killed them. They murdered them.
Well, the definition of homicide is a killing of one human being by another. It's that simple. But
but even if the person was going to commit suicide, if you killed them before they had the chance.
Well, you never have a right to shoot anybody, but I'm not sure.
Where are we going with this?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm a little confused
your
here.
Point.
Was there like a purpose of this? I'm sorry. I'm not being rude. I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, the definition of murder is if you reduce somebody's life by any meaningful amount of time.
How is that? I'm not sure. How is that? What are we talking about? Are we talking about something political, or what are we talking about here?
Okay, let's drop. I'm not making a good argument. But the other thing is Doge. I mean,
hold on. Let's go back for a second. What was the purpose of having that conversation?
Well, it's if you reduce somebody's life, you can't say they would have had a heart attack in a week.
What are we?
You kill them.
What is this about? The president? Is this about George Floyd? What are we talking in regards to what? I don't know what this is related to.
It's about how the definition of murder has changed.
I think he's proposing that if someone's about to commit suicide and you shoot them first, it's still considered homicide. So we'll agree with that. And thanks for the call.
Thanks for the call, buddy. Have a good day.
Who's next?
Margie.
A phone line. Keep calling. The phone lines are lit up, and
they are
just
full.
keep calling. We'll get to you eventually.
Margie.
Hello. How are you guys?
How
You guys
are
are doing
you?
a great job.
Hi, Margie.
Brian's gonna love you. Can't wait till he gets back.
Oh, he called
anyway,
in. He couldn't
no,
resist.
Anyway, I wanted to ask both of you, especially Leonard, because he always says he said it more than once. If Trump says he's serving a third term, he's not leaving the White House.
No.
Don't you think that's going to cause more than protests? I mean, people are going to lose their minds.
It is. He only ran to stay out of jail. My gut tells me that
absolutely.
he owes money or something to Vladimir Putin. I think he has something on him, because if he's really a billionaire, why is he selling NFT cards and Bibles and $100,000 dinners? If the guy really has that much money, why in the hell does he need to do that?
Exactly.
It just doesn't make any sense. There's something going on that we're not aware of yet.
He's going to do everything in his
Absolutely.
power to not
I do
leave.
believe that.
He does not want to leave.
Yes.
And if that means some people think, I mean, I'm going to ask you what you think. Do you think he would call on the military to surround the White House and put snipers on the roof? And
You know what, Leonard? I thought about it, and I honestly don't know what's going to happen, because with this guy, you just can't tell.
You know,
he gives us a surprise a minute.
Leonard, I was going to ask you. Can I ask Leonard a quick question, real quick?
Yeah.
You know, one thing in the video that we played earlier, the little clip when he was talking about renaming the bases, his people, the people in the back, there were some of them that were cheering in the troops. That concerns me a little bit, that they're jeering some of this nonsense.
didn't they? I heard on the news. I didn't see the speech. Did they boo the media?
Yeah.
And did they boo transgender, or they applaud for no transgender people?
He's using the military.
He's influencing the military with his own policies.
That's a very, very dangerous thing to do, because they're supposed to be apolitical.
But I think that this National Guard and sending the Army and the Marines, I think he's trying to do a display of power. Could it be tied into a third term? Could it be headed for a civil war? I don't know. But he's definitely not going to leave the White House.
No, and I've also, you know, the other thing that the me, and again, I would say, what was the caller's name again? I'm sorry, was it, what was your name, caller? I'm sorry.
Margie?
Margie. You know, the other thing that I do see, and the media does do a bad job of this, and I'll be critical of like the CNNs and MSNBCs. I see a lot of video online of people that are like, I've actually seen police officers in some cities taking a knee in solidarity with them, and people have shook in their hands. They've given them high fives, and they've said, "We love you." And I've seen the National Guard in shields, and I've seen people putting flowers in front of them. I'm not seeing any of that.
CNN numbers are down.
Yeah, well,
they're way behind. Fox News is number one by far, and CNN is way down. They seem to be very careful after the election about what they say. They have guests like Scott Jennings. I don't know if you know Scott Jennings.
I know.
I call him Word Salad Sandwich.
He's a white nationalist.
Because everything he says is either inaccurate or cherry-picked, or it's a half-truth. And I don't know why they allow him to stay on the network, because he has no credibility.
They're trying to go more to the right, which is the problem, which was what
Then get somebody with some facts.
Margie, am I wrong? Is that not what CNN's doing, in your opinion? Like they keep trying to go more to the right because they think that the MAGA base is somehow going to start watching CNN, or am I off base there?
I don't watch CNN. I watch Channel 6 News only. I'm in New Jersey. So.
She watches what?
In New Jersey, it's her local channel. Well, you know, Margie, I think, you know, this actually brings up a good point really quick. You know, as a society, one thing that I think that we do, we're addicted to outrage, right? We want to watch LA burn on fire. We want to watch the protests. We want to watch Lahaina burn. We want to watch Hurricane Helene. When is the last time you've seen on CNN, Fox News, any news station, the rebuild of Hurricane Helene? They still have waste on the streets, or the rebuild of LA, or the rebuild of Lahaina. When's the last time you saw any coverage on that?
I agree.
They don't care.
I don't watch news for the drama. I watch news because I feel like it's my obligation as an American citizen to be informed as to what's going on in my country and around the world.
But
I mean, everything that's going on, even with the Gaza and the Ukraine, people don't understand that eventually this all affects us. It affects us in a lot of ways, but no one gets that because they're too worried about.
And the news does the news cover that? No. Does the news explain to you why Gaza is important, why Israel's important, why Ukraine is important, why it's important to back Ukraine? They just give they bombed a certain place last night and leave it at that. But thank you, Margie, for calling. But I'm going to ask Paul if we should go into rapid fire mode.
Are we there? We're there. We'll do rapid fire in the last couple of minutes. We'll talk about our guest tomorrow. Who is next? 1, 3. Lisa.
Yes, Lisa.
We went from Margie to Lisa.
Rapid fire.
Rapid fire.
Oh,
go.
my God, finally.
Sorry about that, Lisa.
Yay. I'm calling from California.
Woohoo, what part?
The good part. You know, the legalized weed part.
That's the whole state.
Party in my house, baby. Wish you guys were here. I'm just going to say, I have to do this to call the White House, just so you know. I have to medicate first. You know why?
No.
Because somebody let Hollywood dumbass in.
Do you support Governor Gavin Newsom?
You better believe I fucking do so.
Whoa.
You should call his office and let him know, and you should encourage
Thank
all
you
your
for the call.
friends, whether they take gummies or smoke or whatever, they should call and tell him that he has support. Thank you for calling.
Thank you. We got to keep it a little PG
No,
on
we're-
here because we don't want to get Brian in trouble.
And we're doing
He'll
rapid
get
fire.
grumpy. Yep. And Richard or Dave. Let's call you Dave. Can I call you Richard, Dave?
Yeah.
Dave,
Hi,
how you
Paul.
doing, buddy?
Geez, I've been on so long. I feel like I'm going to interrupt the flow of the conversation.
No, that's
here,
okay.
But
Phone lines
That's
are
okay.
packed.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I wanted to respond back to why about the Christian nationalist
Mm-hmm.
and why they turn their head and look the other way at what Trump does. I grew up in a fundamentalist church,
Mm-hmm.
and so I know this by heart. I know the whole thing by heart. We have Jimmy Baker, Jerry Falwell, Franklin Graham, Sin and Sin Forgotten. They get up in the pulpit, they cry and bawl their eyes out, and and say they're sorry, I was a sinner, and please have me back. And all the women in the audience, their eyes are filled with tears of sympathy for these guys. And I grew up with this whole syndrome. So I know what it is, and I don't want to sound like a male chauvinist, but I have to say that the women cut guys like this a lot of slack.
Yes, I think a lot of and this is just my opinion, Leonard.
They like the money and the power.
Yeah, we got like a minute or two here. We got to go to the next caller, rapid fire. I believe, and this is just my opinion from when I talk to a lot of people. I believe that there are a lot of men, and I have cousins that are like this, that they buy into the patriarchy, that they believe their quote unquote place is to serve their man, to make them babies, to rub their feet, to make them dinner, and to serve them, and they get that from their mom, their grandparents, and their aunts, and they don't. I think a lot of them don't have a lot of self-esteem, and they feel like that they need the man in their life to make them feel fulfilled, like they're doing God's duty to their husband.
Yeah, Trump wants to go back to 1950.
Right, and
that's his favorite times.
And one of the things that I really liked about I don't like the result of the election was I saw a lot of women that were dating men or that were married, and they left them because they're like, why do you keep voting against my best interests? And she's like, do you love me? Then why are you taking away my rights? And I'm glad that a lot of these women stood up, and now the guys are like, well, what did I do wrong? I'm like, because you're not listening.
Didn't they say in this past election that some women were secretly telling their husbands they were going to vote for Trump, but then showing up, and they had to lie to their husbands to vote for Kamala?
They did.
That's a little too.
And they look over the booth to see who they're voting for, which is, if I'm not mistaken, that's even illegal.
It's
isn't
crazy.
It? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. We're gonna get on to the
thank
next
you.
caller right here. Thanks you so
for calling.
much, Richard.
Hey, how you guys doing?
How are you?
Today? Oh, doing good. Yeah, there's one issue that the Democrats have to change their minds on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the Republicans will stay in power. It's called it's the vaccine mandates.
The vaccine mandate. You mean the one where we had a deadly virus that killed millions of people around the world? That one?
Yeah.
What about it?
You talking about the measles vaccine or polio or?
No, I'm talking about yeah, all of them, even the COVID.
So then you're an RFK fan, I'm guessing. Robert F. Kennedy?
No, about he's halfway. No,
Did somebody strap you to a chair, sir, and give you the vaccine?
Oh no! But a lot of people lost their jobs because they wouldn't take it.
A lot of people lose their jobs for not doing a drug test. They don't have to do a drug test.
A lot of people lose their jobs for showing up late.
Yeah,
How's that relevant?
Drinking and driving.
Yeah.
What's the point? Who forced you to take it?
Okay, so measles for the first time in decades is out of control.
Yeah.
I think they're in the 1,100 or so area. And so you would agree that you can't mandate measles vaccines for children so we can stop and kill the disease?
No, I'm not against it. For children, when there's an epidemic and measles.
Oh, only when there's an epidemic. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
Are you, sir? Listen, let's have a conversation here. Are you a doctor?
No,
Are you
I know doctors.
Are you a scientist?
I'm.
Have you read the FDA reports from the vaccines?
Do you have any facts?
It's controversial. For one thing,
it's controversial. How?
No, it's not.
Okay.
For who? For you?
The science is a science. Whether you agree with it or not, that's different. That's your opinion. That's hyperbole, but the science is the science.
Do you, when you get in your car, do you complain that we force you to wear a seatbelt, or is that different?
Well, no, it's different.
Are you fine with the Supreme Court taking away a woman's right to do what she wants with her body?
No, I don't care about that.
No, you don't care because it doesn't affect you.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
That goes back to what we talked about. He doesn't have empathy because it didn't affect him. He needs to be the victim, right? Poor me. I have to get a vaccine. I lost my job because I don't want to save other people's lives. Poor me.
I'm going to be as polite as I can. I understand that some people have your opinion, but we would prefer. I have a whole set of facts that can support the vaccine mandate, and if you would bring some facts, call back when you have some factual evidence, because there is science on both sides, but there is everyone knows that the vaccine is what slowed down the COVID. I mean, that saved hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people.
And nobody was.
There's no.
But sir, nobody was forced to take it. You make it sound like people were like you said.
Airline pilots were forced.
Huh?
That's why 40% of the airline pilots didn't take it, and that's why they got fired. And that's what caused all the delays in the flights and all that.
Leonard, how many? Real quick, we'll wrap this up. How many vaccines do our kids get in school? Is it like 8 to 10?
Yeah. I would. You mean now or when I was growing up?
Just in general, like right now.
No, it's probably down to 4 or 5. But when I was growing up, there was a whole cocktail of vaccines that you got at certain ages, and it kept you from getting the measles and polio and all kinds of stuff.
So, Richard, why is it that we went from all these shots and the military gets shots and they're all mandated, but all of a sudden with COVID, all of a sudden it's a problem? Why do you think that is?
Because for one thing, it's an experimental drug. It was done too quick.
And who put through Operation Warp Speed? Was that Biden?
Oh yeah, that's
was that George Soros?
No, I know who. Yeah,
who did
made a mistake.
Who?
Trump.
Well, the same guy that gave a bunch of COVID medical supplies to Putin.
Yeah,
when we were hurting.
Yeah, the same guy that took the vaccine.
Is he a MAGA? Sir, are you a MAGA?
Yeah.
Half.
Half MAGA?
Halfway.
What's the other half?
Yeah.
Democrat?
I'm very moderate.
Liberal? Libertarian?
Yeah, libertarian. I believe in prostitution should be legalized. I believe that that all drugs should be legalized.
Wow.
Like cocaine and fentanyl? You think that should be legalized?
Yeah.
Until somebody high on meth breaks into his house.
Wow.
Right? And then when somebody high on meth breaks into your house, then you start to say, well, not meth, because that was terrible.
Hey, Richard, we got to wrap up. I mean, I appreciate the call, but if you have some medical stuff, I wouldn't be objected to calling back tomorrow. But do me a favor, I want you to look up in Oregon, and I think it was 2 or 3 years ago they actually legalized cocaine, and they're still cleaning up that mess. So
I know.
We just say let's legalize drug. Well, if you understand it, then why are you for it?
It's a talking point. There's no.
I know. I was just trying to help. All right, thank you for the call, buddy.
We might be able to squeeze one more. No?
That's it. All right.
Done?
Yep. So tomorrow, I don't know if you're going to be here. If I'm rolling solo, we'll figure all that out.
I am not scheduled to be here tomorrow, but let me know what
we'll
you
figure
need.
it out. So tomorrow, we do have one more. Hold on. Somebody snuck in at the last minute. It's a Hail Mary. William. You there, William?
Is this you?
I hope so.
Are you going to be Rookie of the Year on PTO?
I don't know. I hope I get a pin.
Come on, you guys, have a sense of humor.
I try to.
There's no reason why we can't have a little fun, a little comedy with serious politics.
Because I have to admit that, Paul, you're better than that comedian that laughs at himself. You're much better.
I do have a charming
who I'm
personality.
talking about.
I don't
want to call him out.
Are you talking about Brian Shapiro?
You know what I'm talking about. No, it was between you and the comedian for who gets to do the show.
No, Brian's funny. I mean, we've had some fun times.
Yeah.
We've really chopped it
No.
up.
It's the other comedian that comes on the show. It's not Brian.
I don't think we know who that is.
Are you talking about the guy that impersonates Trump?
Yeah, that laughs at himself.
Oh, I don't know.
Joke.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. He's all right.
Okay,
he's
but
very
you're
mid. He's very mid. He's
We're
mid.
funny. We're funnier than him.
I think we're funnier.
Don't get me started on my southern accent.
Listen, let me ask you, William. Don't you think that like the optics, like when you look at the YouTube channel, don't you think that the picture looks better with Leonard and I than Brian? Wouldn't you agree?
Can I be honest with you?
No. Well, it depends on how you want to answer it.
No, don't be honest.
Tell us how you're going to answer it.
No.
And I'll tell you if you can answer honestly.
No, I just have a phone. I'm a dinosaur, so you're talking something I can't negotiate.
All right, buddy. Well, thanks for the call. You are going to be our last call today.
Thank you.
Can I just have one question?
One quick question, then we got to go. We got 30 seconds, buddy.
Okay. Why does everybody have to agree with a point of opinion, or they're disregarded completely as nothing? Why?
Are you talking
Why
about the
can't
Trump
it be a liberal-
administration?
No, just in general.
I don't think you. Well, I'll answer this really quick, if that's okay, Leonard.
No, go.
I think this. I think it's very simple. I think for far too long that people. I got to go here, but people on the right have told people how to live their lives, and I think right now we're saying you're not going to tell us how to live our life. You're not going to tell a woman what to do with their rights. You voted for a man who rapes a woman who's a convicted felon, and people have PTSD and they struggle with 77 million people, friends and neighbors, that didn't see that as a red line. I think it's actually good that we have disagreements. So
thanks for calling in,
buddy.
William.
All right, so we'll wrap it up. Thank you guys. Thanks for coming today, being my guest. Tomorrow, 12 p.m., Congressman Eric Swalwell will be here for the first 50 minutes. He has a floor vote at 12:45, so we will make it quick.
No shameless plugs before you go?
I don't have any shameless plugs other than my website. If you guys want to follow me, I'm on YouTube. Paul Lance, it's Paul for Quality. Same thing on TikTok. I think that's it. We didn't even do a break today.
Thank you so much, Paul. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. It was
to
a
be
pleasure
here with you, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Shouldn't we get like a break? Isn't there like a union mandated break? Are we breaking state laws by not having a break?
I'm
in 2
about
hours?
to put in an overtime slip in about a minute.
I'm going to file a grievance with the union. All right, guys, have a good day, and I will see you later. Brian, don't get a sunburn. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Hey everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza